Hey, it's Enrico Palazzo!
Utah, give me 2.
Palazzo!
Utah, give me 2.
Welcome, everyone, to your Monday evening fun with Ben and Robbie. Well, also known as the Prospects Power Hour here on the family of podcasts. This is just the two of us tonight because our man Sam was part of the Tout Wars draft this last weekend, and he is currently in transit back to good old Washington State. So, Robbie, it's just you and I tonight. How are you doing this evening?
I'm great. I showed up to the record 30 minutes early, so I had lots of time. Check out this pour. I want everyone respect. So that's cider on the bottom, Guinness on the top. And so this is my dessert. This is my dinner. Because I had a late night at work. And other than that, I'm having some beer and some pretzels with mustard as well. So I'm good. I'm 1 day away from having 5 days off, and I can't wait. So, but Ben,
Always
how about
a
you?
good thing. Lots of stuff going on at the day job with the new ownership. They're changing over some things, and it's we've been kind of at things for about 6 months under the new ownership, and now we're kind of flipping some switches onto their network, and they're this and they're that, and so there's a little bit of stuff going on that kind of keeps me up at night, but that's life. And it's state basketball tournament time around here, so that's a big deal, and we have one of the better basketball teams this year, and actually have in South Dakota there are 3 classes, Class B, Class A, and Class AA, and we have the number 3 seed in all 3 tournaments. So we have a local team that's in the B tournament, a local team in the A tournament, and a local team in the AA tournament. So that'll be fun.
Nice.
Now, if they weren't all playing at the exact freaking same time, it'd make it a lot easier for a newspaper man to cover, but that's another discussion.
Yeah, those are challenges. The university that I'm at, the University of Waterloo, the women's hockey team is playing in the Canadian Championships or the U Sport Finals for all the universities. They're hosting this year as they did last year, and I'm fortunate enough to be off. So I don't have to go and provide food for all the games, but our team, or my kitchen culinary team, is doing that. So they'll be quite busy for that, but it's pretty cool that they're doing that. They lost to the University of Guelph in double overtime to get eliminated, and Guelph ended up winning the OUA, or Ontario University Athletics, title. So now they're back, and they play each other Thursday, and I'm really contemplating going, because I'm sure that's going to be one of those, like, they want to get their win back, get that back. They smoked them 6-0 in the second game, but they lost the first game, I think 3-1, and then the third game, of course, double OT. So, but that's hockey, and we're here to talk baseball tonight. So we'll clear the deck for everybody here. The Mets, the Diamondbacks, and the Reds are who we're talking about. But we've got some news and things Reds related. Hunter Green injury.
Yeah, kind of affecting 2 of our teams in there that we're going to talk about tonight in the news and notes. Hunter Green. Why am I blanking? My brain just shut off as to what his injury actually was. He's out till midseason at least, and I'm forgetting exactly what the injury was, but that's okay. Regardless, what this does do, and it's somebody we're going to talk about a little later in Rhett Lauder, but also Brandon Williamson. And both of them may come north now with the team, which is an interesting thing because they were already considering a 6-man rotation, and that was going to include one of the 2 of them. And now it's very likely going to include both of them. So that could be very positive for those of you who own shares of either one of those guys. Much more shares out there of Rhett Lauder owned than Brandon Williamson, and that could be a thing to keep an eye on in waivers.
Well, Williamson, as far as like dynasty and goes, Williamson was once a darling, right? Came over from the Mariners and just looked like this dominant guy, and then got up and looked a little human, and then got hurt, and he has not, like, almost, it's kind of like the wound healed around him, and the team didn't need him once he was healthy again. So he has dropped down in a lot of status things, to the point I think I DFA'd him in a 30-team league with 40-man MLB rosters, because I felt like Kyron Paris may have been able to help me more, and a backup Colorado catcher, because that's just the way of the world in some of those big leagues. So he could be kicking around there. Green's injury is he had surgery to remove bone chips and loose bodies.
Oh, yep. There we go. Yeah,
so 14 to 16 weeks. That's the
so
estimated
the
time.
Interesting thing for me with Williamson is he is basically Andrew Abbott, but he's got more issues. He's about 3 inches taller-ish, right in that range. And so therefore kind of has the typical taller guy issue with maintaining his control, maintaining his delivery. And that's always been his issue. Well, Abbott had some of the same issues with control, but he's a smaller guy, was able to get his delivery under control, and now he's in the rotation. And like I said, Williamson is a very, very similar profile, but it's just interesting because they had Connor Phillips, who's a very similar profile like that, right? Yeah, yep. Phillips, yep. And then Abbott, and then Williamson. So I mean, these guys who are big time curveball pitchers with the mid-90s fastball, and Phillips and Williamson kind of flamed out after their maybe a little bit of initial success or initial prospect intrigue. And Abbott is kind of settled into more of a different pitcher, more of a ground ball type of pitcher. Doesn't quite get you
pitching to the point, instead of, we talk about pitching versus throwing.
Yeah.
And sometimes guys are trying to, like they talked about Kopech nonstop, always trying to beat the hitter instead of just pitch to the guy and using what you can, and then going from the starting to the bullpen to what is he going to do? What is Michael Kopech moving forward? And the Reds have a bunch of those guys too. So, but this Green injury at least opens the door for 2 guys, it looks like, as you said, to screw with us and rotations. And San Diego. Petty, sorry, go ahead.
Chase Petty was sent down before this news and has not been brought back to camp. I kind of wonder if that means they want him for sure to get a definite turn in AAA, at least, if not multiple. But it wouldn't surprise me at all if Chase is like the first guy that they call if one of these 2 guys struggles out of the gate. As
long as he's not struggling in AAA, because he was not good. Yeah. And then when you bring somebody who's not doing well up, it's a disaster. So, but the Reds will go 6. Rumor has it San Diego is so unimpressed with all of their options, including non-roster invitees, like Tristan McKenzie, their own guy, JP Sears, who post-trade, they just don't seem to like JP Sears, which I don't understand. Bueller, that they might go 4-man rotation for the first couple series, which is crazy to me. I think the rumors are Bueller would be the 5th guy. And I don't get why they made the trade for Mason Miller and took JP Sears, who wasn't expensive, but was an every 5th day guy for the A's for multiple years. And then San Diego doesn't like him. I'm not sure what's going on with that, because he got 5 starts last year. And that was it. That's one that we'll have to figure out later, because it just doesn't make any sense. And I mean, the funny part is now Oakland really doesn't have room for him with some of the guys they've got coming likely by the end of this year, and guys like Jump, and then they've got Jamie Arnold probably paged for 27. I mean, they have higher upside guys, and they have a bunch of guys like Sears that are kind of that 5th starter type. But so he was basically expendable to them, but he was a useful pitcher. Right. And now the Padres are like, you know what? We're going to let Randy Vasquez see if he can maybe hit the backstop a few more times before we give you a chance. Yep. I don't understand what it is that about it. But anyway, that's from one team having a 6-man to the other team that I was reading about today, more than likely going to go with 6, or the 5th will be Bueller, which would be great for him, but just odd to me about the Sears stuff. So anyway, WBC, I am congratulating Canada for the first time in moving out of the Pool A. Unfortunately, they ran into the U.S., who got lucky and beat them. They had said from the outset that Canada did not have the bullpen to get into serious games, and I think they were able to use their bullpen, including James Paxton, former MLB starting pitcher, to get through. But that is what happens when you don't have all that depth. And they were out. Owen Casey, was excellent. The Naylor Bros did their thing. It was good to see. There were, of course, Canadians who did not participate. And the U.S. is moving on thanks to a low strike call. So there you go.
Yeah, which is going to be all kinds of interesting because now they're talking about having ABS in the WBC, which that's interesting. But USA will be going for a championship on Tuesday. And as we're recording right now, which, Govier hates that when we throw current stuff into our prospect stuff because he likes these to be evergreen. But right now, Italy and Venezuela are playing, and it is 2-1 in the fourth inning. So, another good game that could be a lot of fun. But, Robbie, did you know that this will be the first WBC final that does not include one of Japan or Puerto Rico?
I knew Japan, of course, was not going to be back in, but I didn't realize Puerto Rico was the other partner in it. Okay.
Yeah.
Puerto Rico sort of is, since it is part of the States. So,
that's a whole nother discussion. Just don't tell don't tell certain people that because they don't believe that you can speak Spanish and also be a United States citizen. But one of the interesting things to me, and we're going to talk about him later, but Nolan McLean is getting the start in the championship game for the United States. That's very interesting.
It sure is.
We'll get more into who Nolan McLean is as a pitcher, but that says a lot for you right there. A guy who does not even have a full season of Major League Ball under him is getting the ball for the U.S. in the championship game. Now, mind you, you talked about Canada's probably biggest hiccup being their bullpen. That might be the biggest strength for the U.S. team is the depth of their bullpen. And so if McLean goes 2 innings and they start pulling guys, I think he's done his job. That's the good and bad about it. But it's still a pretty impressive spot to put a guy with less than a full season of Major League time into.
And it also does show that if this was a mid-season tournament, you would see different players and different things happening versus early season where they're like, yeah, sure, we'll take them. And, our second baseman, Bryce Terang, which is something that they talked a lot about early. And your manager also being an absolute moron in Mark DeRosa, not understanding how rules and tiebreakers can work. All those little things would get sorted out if this was, and I'm going to say a more serious event or taken more seriously by all participants. But that's if you go into mid-season and you break it down like what the NHL did for the Olympics where they shut it down for a couple weeks. That would be really interesting.
That's been pushed quite a few times. And so far, I want to say it's the owners that have actually pushed back the hardest on this. I think the players have said that this would work, but it's a matter of you give up the All-Star game that particular year because it's about that same time. And so far, Major League Baseball is like, well, then that screws up some TV deals. And so we don't want to lose that. And
yeah, for sure. So, and I get the business owner side of it, but that's how you show that it is you're displaying your product at that point. And like, look how amazing the games are. Like when they were overseas, right? Like everywhere, but like Houston was still popping too as a location, but you could just see that like different atmosphere from the more,
the best spot
dull
is
MLB
Miami when there are Latin teams involved.
Yeah.
Miami with with the Dominican, Miami with Venezuela, Miami with Puerto Rico. You get really fun environments because of the crowds that they can pull in right from their home base right there. But it is without that, you don't get that kind of energy out of Americans showing up for the United States team. It's just, that's not the energy you get.
Yeah. And that's just 162 game season versus getting it up in spring training and stuff. So anyway, some guys are still in spring training. Some guys are finishing off with WBC. And other guys are getting sent down and having their dreams crushed. Now, outside of Joe Mack, which for sure frees up my boy Hicks with Miami to be back in his DH 1B catcher role which I think suits the team better than having Mac up in. I don't know what the role would ideally be at this point in time. I didn't notice anybody else that was really a surprising-ish guy, other than, as I mentioned to you, is it Henry Godbout, who got sit down with Boston, as we were talking before we started recording. I just thought it was interesting. He was in camp this late, and Ben, you had alluded to the fact that it might be because of where some of those Red Sox outfielders were that he got to kick around longer.
And Mac, I think, is interesting because there's a lot of people, that one has been brought up by a few people. I guess I didn't ever really think he was going to start the year.
Nor did
Major
I.
League.
Liam Hicks did a great job last year for what he was. Just put him back in.
I thought from day one that Augustin's going to go into the season as the catcher and be allowed to show that he cannot be a catcher. And then Mac is, Liam Hicks is a perfect backup. That's the guy you just want to keep backup. And so then once Augustin shows, I shouldn't be catching anymore, then okay, that's great. You move him to first base or DH or whatever, and then you bring up Mac and he becomes your starting catcher, and Hicks continues to be that excellent backup that he is.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
I didn't understand why anyone really thought that was what was going to happen, but okay.
Other than just being excited at the opportunity of a prospect, breaking camp, I didn't see it myself. So Joe's asking, as you all can, if you join us on YouTube, or we do have a Discord, which I replied to a comment this week in the Discord, very friendly place. Joe's asking if I can pronounce God boot in Canadian, please. He didn't quite hear me. So yes, it is. It is Henry, right? I'm saying the Henry, right? Yeah. I'm not getting that part. Yeah. God boot. So there you go.
And Andre, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's Andre, but anyway, when you say it wrong, you got to go whole hog on it. So anyway, the last thing for notes that I wanted to do was defend myself, because I was told that Yost of Detroit, who was their first round pick, is not allowed to be called a sleeper pick, which I anointed him last week when we went through Detroit. And I broke it down. Right here it is. Okay. Or I've broken it down, comma, pause. Here it is. He was the 12th high school shortstop off the board last draft. 12th. So if you want to go into NFL terms, the 12th quarterback off the board would be a sleeper if they were to be successful. So hence why Yost is a sleeper to me. And who was the 13th high school shortstop taken? None other than overhyped already Dax Kilby of the Yankees. So chill out, everybody. All right. Yost is sleeping between all these giants from Willits to Kilby, and maybe he will be the one who is the most yoked of the Yosts. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, Ben, now we can move on to the main topic for the night, which is the Mets, the Reds, and the Diamondbacks. Is there a preferred order you have?
Oh, I think what you just...
Yeah. Okay.
I think we had Mets is the first one for sure, and then we'll go from there. We can figure out Diamondbacks or Reds after that, but I like the Mets system. I think is a good one to start off with.
All right. Why don't you fire off with last year's? Actually, you know what? I have the notes. I'm going to do it like a host would. Da 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 da. Boop. Ben, last year your big three were Jet Williams, Brandon Sprout, and Ryan Clifford. Is that correct? Yes, it is. Or no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep,
It was those three. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, those three last year.
All right.
And,
so who do you have for this year?
So this year, that wasn't a half bad grouping.
No,
but,
I'm going to call that successful.
The guys I have this year for my big three are two guys that I will admit that I did not have the cojones to mention in my big three next three last year, and I feel bad for that now. And the first one is Nolan McLean, and we've talked about him already.
Mm-hmm.
Big, athletic righty. He was a two-way guy, and that he was even still DHing in the first year in his draft year after the Mets picked him, and then went full-time into pitching for the first time ever last year. Last year, first time ever pitching full-time. Got to the major leagues and was quite successful in a short spurt in the major leagues. Pitch-wise, this is a holy shit pitch mix. This is a guy with a plus fastball, plus curve, a plus slider, and then he even has a sweeper that could be plus, and a change that's definitely above average and probably could be plus depending on how he's locating it. And that's the other thing. Right now he is control over command, but the control is probably in that 55 range. I mean, needs to work on the command to spot the ball within the zone where he wants it. But if you're getting the ball in the zone at an above average rate, and you've got 5, potentially 6 plus pitches, this is what they say is kind of your, if this isn't a model for an ace, I'm not quite sure what is. The issue is that was his first ever full year pitching. There's going to be stuff that comes up that, okay, maybe this isn't exactly all of who he is, or he hits some speed bumps along the way. But I think if you expect that for the next 2 years, this is a mid-rotation starter who then turns into an elite ace as he can, gets used to pitching, gets used to the major leagues, etc., I think you're setting yourself up fairly well. And that's the type of here. I'm a huge fan of McLean. That was the biggest. I mean, I could have told you as soon as we got off our show last year that was the guy that should have been in my next 3 at least, because I was a huge fan of him, almost as much as I was a fan of Carson Bench, and he's my second guy. Another two-way guy, and oddly was actually a roommate with Nolan McLean in college at Oklahoma State. And the Mets took him as well, and instead of having him pitch, turned him into a full-time hitter. And last year was his first year as a full-time hitter, and he got all the way up to AAA and is now very strongly in consideration for Major League time. I don't think this is going to be a guy who comes up and immediately gives you 30 bombs. I do think somewhere in the career that's there, but I put down on here that it would not surprise me if he has more of a Matt Holliday type of hitting career. And Holliday had 1 or 2 years that were 30 bomb years. And yes, and actually, if you want to consider that, they were in Colorado, so that's part of that. But
sure,
he was a guy who had a lot of doubles. He had a very high batting average. It was just kind of more of an all-around complete hitter who happened to get 25 to 30 home runs a lot of years. That's what I could see Bench turning into. I think he's got the opportunity to stay at center field right now, but he's probably best in right field, the way his arm can play. And then my last guy on here is someone that I did not consider last year for Big Three Next Three, because I was way out on him, and I'm having to eat some crow now, and that's Jonah Tong. Big time changeup, big time fastball characteristics that I had a tough time believing in, because there just was so little evidence of a breaking pitch last year. And really, there still kind of isn't a whole lot of evidence of a great breaking pitch, but he's learned how to use that fastball and changeup so well. He's got that over top delivery that's really tough to pick up. And he has gone already way farther than I would have expected. Probably, like I said, the next step here is adding a solid breaking pitch that he can trust. But I put on here that the top end of this profile that he has is a guy that's now his teammate, and that's Freddie Peralta. Very, very similar. I mean, Peralta has a very similar type of pitch mix, and if he can follow that, and Peralta's developed breaking pitches, he came up as a fastball changeup guy, was okay in that as a 4 guy in the rotation for a little bit. For time, he's added in breakers that work. They're not great, they're not elite, but they work for him, and they offset everything, the fastball change, and that allows those 2 pitches to really play up for him. and he is considered an ace in the game right now. So if that's where Tong can eventually get to, then good for him, and I'll definitely eat more crow at that point. But that's me putting him on the big three is my sign of okay, Jonah, you've made me eat my crow now. So
Okay. Well, I had Jonah on my next three last year, so I was in on it. And while you were speaking, I read what I'd written about him, which was more than a lot of guys in my notes. That it was in sentence form too. 113 innings across three levels. Finished the season in Double-A, 34% K rate. I even had an xFIP of 288. What am I doing a year ago? 4-pitch mix, blah, blah, blah. I said the blemish was the walk rate, not the breaking pitch, as you have mentioned. And he's repeating for me, getting promoted to my big three for this year. Last year, I had Jet Williams, Luis Acuna, and Ronnie Mauricio. This year, I've done the same as you, Tong, Benj, and McLean. And same reasons. Now, McLean is the one guy for me who he has found money if you're the Mets, because you were not 100% sure what he was. Now you obviously are getting this like amazing ceiling guy at the moment. And I love the idea of running with him and letting him go in the WBC as well is part of that. So I was pleasantly surprised with him, but I didn't have him on anything for me last year. Williams will be mentioned when we get into Wedge guys, and Acuna's gone, and Mauricio is
Williams is gone too.
Sorry. Well, yes. Sorry. Okay. Williams is gone. Acuna obviously gone. So yeah. Anyway, how about your next three? Last year, you had Mauricio, Drew Gilbert, and Jonathan Santucci. Who you got this year?
And Gilbert is now gone, and Mauricio is, I believe, graduated.
Yeah, at the very least, close. I was going to say I didn't repeat him, so I assume he did.
Yeah. So this year I've got a guy, and this is a guy who actually came up a little bit. Yeah, there we go. Joe mentioned it before I get into this.
I had sentences in my notes. Yeah, usually my notes are ineligible. I don't know. This beer's, thank you. This cider, it's pear cider. Delicious.
It's getting to you already, huh?
It's a great dinner.
This guy came up in the Discord already today, and so I'm going to mention him, and we'll talk a little bit about him, and that's AJ Ewing. Not a guy that I think that they drafted expecting that he would get to where he is now, but he is right now on the doorstep of the major leagues, and it would not surprise me if he is their center field by the end of the year, that he has taken the most reps in center field. That would not surprise me. He has a really good control of strike zone. He has double plus speed right now, and he's made the transition to center field defensively, but he can also play second and third quite well. So there's asset right there. But there's also 10 home run-ish power right now. And if he continues the improvement that he has, I very well could see him being a guy that gets, has really good batting averages, 10 to 15 home runs, and gives you 35 stolen bases. That's a fantasy stud. That's, and I really, really like him as a fantasy prospect. Now, as a regular prospect, I don't know that he is a plus defender at any position that he plays. As a real life prospect, I think he's probably one of those guys who's a 50-ish type of prospect because you really don't know where he plays. But as a fantasy guy, I'm all over him. And honestly, because there's a chance that he might play 2 or 3 positions that could help out your team and give you double-digit home runs and 30 steals. That's a very, very valuable player. My next one, I'm bringing Ryan Clifford back. He was in my big three last year. Clifford is just one of those guys who he's kind of just done what he needs to do the whole way up the system, but nothing sexy. Kind
and
of a
you like your young men sexy, right, Ben? That's what we're getting from this. Sexy sexy young men.
I like
soon
sexy
to you.
tools. Let's put it that way. We like sexy. Oh,
Don't know if that's working how you're wanting it to.
Exactly. But kind of a 3 true outcome sort of guy, but he could also give you 10 steals too. And I mean, with Pete Alonso gone, there's a good chance that Clifford factors in at first base when they figure out that Jorge Polanco is not the guy that should be playing first base for them. But of course, we also know how they have handled corner guys in the past, like Vientos and Brett Beatty and such guys. So it wouldn't surprise me if they mess around with him a little bit, but this is legit big time power that could be a 25 to 30 home run guy, give you 10 steals, and it might be a 220 average, but if you're in an OBP league or an OPS type of league, he's going to have a very good walk rate too. So you're going to be a guy, get a very good OPS with home runs and a little bit of speed. That's a pretty solid player. And last but not least is Jacob Reimer, who took a huge step forward last year. He was a 4th round pick in 2022 out of high school, and he's just kind of been working his way along, and kind of one of those really good stories about how prospect development is not linear. He's been making kind of little progress, and then he took a huge jump forward last year, got all the way up to AA. And he really did it in changing a little bit of his approach. He was a really good on-base guy early on, and he's now more of a contact over. He's willing to expand the zone a little bit for contact, has very good contact rates. I kind of wonder if he ends up being a guy that comes back to that walking in order to get more power as he gets to the majors and realizes that not everyone's going to throw him fastballs that kind of sit in the middle of the zone, because that never happens in the majors. When we were talking with Justin Henry Malloy, the joke was he talked with Michael Harris and said, "So when's the last time you saw a middle fastball?" And they both laughed. And he was only in AAA at the time, and Harris was in the majors and going, "Yeah, those don't exist. They just don't exist anymore." And so Reimer's a guy, probably the defense moves him off of third, and so he'll probably end up at first and might even be DH only type of a guy. But the hit and power together should be a really valuable player. And so it's just a matter of, can he take that last step to where it's enough hit and power to make him worth it to a major league team when he's not going to be able to really play a strong defense. So how about you, Robbie? Who are your
tipping
next
well, I was going to say,
last year?
tipping my hand. I had Reimer. I had Reimer as well, and my note on him was after the hamstring injury limited him to 25 games in the minors plus the 17 in the AFL. It was great to see him recoup, and then back on to what you said there. Previous year, I had Jonah Tong, as I mentioned. I had Christian Scott, who I was talking about as a sleeper because he was not going to pitch, and he was ideally going to get some AFL time and some AAA time. So he's not mentioned this year, but he is still within that process.
In that type of realm. Yep.
Yeah, I had Jesus Baez last year, who had great bat speed and things looked well, and he's not mentioned tonight. So not that that's an indication that he fell off a cliff, but he's not on the list. We've replaced him. So Reimer is in that crew. I've got Elan Pena as well, who's a DSL $5 million bonus baby. 9 home runs, 21 stolen bases last year in the DSL. Let's get this guy stateside and see what he really is. And then my final guy, because I think this is kind of where the Mets are for me in the next group, is another DSL guy, Randy Guzman, who's I think he's a first baseman, possibly 6'4", 80 pounds. No, he's 215 allegedly. We'll see what he actually is. But he was very good last year. He signed for only $10,000. These are the gems that you can get. And he played rookie ball, A-ball last year. I think, was last year the first year he was stateside? No, he did come over in 24 and had some time. But last year he hit 10 home runs, had nothing for stolen bases here, but learned the game and had a 300 plus average. So I think this might fit a Mets profile as a future guy who could be penciled in to as long as there isn't a first baseman in next year's free agent pool that you could throw $200 million at. He might be a guy that they are able to sneak in, which when we get to the Wedge players momentarily, there's a reason why players that are on my list have been traded and others that I just don't know where they're going to go. So, but Guzman, Pena, and Reimer are my guys there. So, yeah, Ben, who do you got for sleepers and wedgies?
So I'm bringing back a guy that I mentioned last year, and this is what I want to talk about here. This system has a lot of guys with variable reports. The Mets I've seen with as many as 7 guys on a top 100. I've seen them with as few as 3. So it's an interesting system in that there's, like I said, there's a lot of variation in the kind of the community ideas of what these players are. But one that I have liked since he was in college, just didn't make my list this year because there were other guys I wanted to bring up, is Jonathan Santucci. Left-hander, he was at Duke, probably was among the best pitchers coming into the draft in 2024, and then just kind of had a ho-hum year, and it dropped him into the second round. And if you looked at the way he started the year, you pretty quickly forgot who he was, and you probably missed that in his final 20 starts of the year, he had a 1.95 ERA and had a 30% strikeout rate. And that was in high A and double A. That's generally pretty good numbers at those levels.
Mm-hmm, yeah, absolutely.
And so there's still some relief risk because it's a fastball and a huge slider. But if he spent this year in AAA really working on a changeup, maybe a second, maybe he uses a cutter instead of a changeup sort of thing. But to get that solid third pitch to go along with those two, and then the big thing for him is just going to be consistency of getting out there every day and being that same guy, which after those first few starts, that's what he was the rest of the year. He came out and gave you a chance to win every single start. Whereas, the first few starts, it was kind of all over the place. He was trying to strike everyone out and wasn't. And then when he kind of settled in, is like, you know what, how about I just pitch to these guys and make them hit the ball? Well, then he struck out 30% of the guys he faced. So, we'll see how he does this year, but this is a guy, the Mets have the depth in the major leagues and in the kind of the quad A type of guys. You mentioned Scott, he's in that grouping this year, to where they can absolutely let someone like Santucci pitch the entire year in AA, AAA, and get those reps against upper minors hitting and really work on stuff to where then he is considered an impact guy in 27. I think if he's coming up in 26, something has gone very, very, very wrong with the Mets depth. But that's that. I looked up a couple of draftees who were kind of later than normal, but one kind of struck me a little bit like Jonah Tong, and that is Camden Lohman, who they picked.
The only other option than Mitch Voigt, who was their first round pick. There were two dudes, so I'm with you here, Ben. Yes, please. Tell the people.
He had a huge velocity gain in his final year of high school, and he's working in the mid-90s now, has these long arms, long legs, comes from over the top, just like Tong. But it's one of those guys who I think is he what, 6'3"?
6'4", baby, 195.
6'4", okay. But there was someone who made the comment that he looks, when he gets those arms and legs all coming at you, it looks like you're facing 6'7", 6'8", because it's just really long arms and legs for that height. That said, there's not a whole lot of stuff other than the fastball right now. He's got 2 fastballs, and they're distinct, but he needs to really develop other pitches along with it. But one of those guys that if he can get a changeup at an above average rate, he could blow up a ball. And then next year he's working on he's working in high A and double A on a breaking pitch. And then 2 years from now, we're talking about him the same way we're talking about Jonah Tong right now. So it's a very, very exciting pitcher to watch.
Yeah, in a system that has developed their guys, right? As we've mentioned two tonight, three with the gentleman you've mentioned, Santucci. So like the report that I had on him, or my collective, I should say, as I also had Lohman as the only other one, as I mentioned, was Voit, who was their first round pick. And I'm not allowed to call them sleepers. I get it. So, but fastball curve slider is what it said. Now, I didn't see a curveball when I watched any of his pitches in looking for video for him, but I do know the Mets cared enough about him to go well over slot. He signed for $797,000 that's $558,000 over the slot. But yeah, mid-90s fastball and a short stride coming from over the top that, as you said, Ben, makes it look quite different than what it actually is. So again, expect, depending on how they do this, if they complex him and whatever, the line will probably look pretty good in his favor his first full season, whether that's this year or next. But knowing that he was drafted far enough back in the 8th round, he could be a dynasty sleeper where you don't need to jump on him right away. No. You can watch him and see how he's doing. And then depending on how your pickups for prospects go, if it's in season, always put these guys on your watch list. If it's off season drafts, if you think there's a chance in your league, there's other guys, ahead of the curve like you, he would be the kind of guy you take late next year in one of your drafts. So, but for my wedge players here, I had Ryan Clifford, and honestly, I'm just concerned over average and who's going to actually stop him. And it has a lot more not to do with his skill set. It has a lot more to do with, Polanco's not going to stop him. Vientos could move over. They are the Mets. The next free agent class could block him if he doesn't show enough in his AAA and MLB time this year that they just sign the next guy, which is why I was talking about Randy Guzman in the next as a potential guy, because maybe they do sign a 2-3 year guy and maybe Clifford ends up not being able to fit within the organization. The other guy I did have has been traded since I wrote it, and that's Jet Williams. That's how far ahead I was, everybody. I had already written him in. And my comment on him was, where will he play? And I've updated to say, well, he was traded. So I was right.
He's going to play in Milwaukee.
Because
there's a bad poet,
there's a feeling that he wasn't going to hit the ball hard enough to have the OPS or 10 plus home runs a year, and he's not great at D. So anyway, the Mets moved him out, got back Peralta amongst that package or whatever that they gave up. And then my draft sleepers, I had Lohman as well, and Voit was the other guy. So we did overlap a lot on the Mets, which I think says a lot about the organization. They've got guys, and those are the guys. So we'll have to see if they can find some others that can shine above.
Since you mentioned this, I wanted to look it up. First basemen that are right now on the free agent list for next year.
Well, cool. Okay.
Quote unquote first baseman. Because one of them that MLB trade rumors has listed is Alec Boehm, who I don't know is actually when Bryce Harper was hurt, Boehm played first, and then but then the only other one who is 30 or younger is Ryan Mountcastle. Otherwise, you get into guys like Nathan Lowe and Dominic Smith, which they've already been down that road. Jake Bowers.
So Clifford's got maybe 2 years to figure it out, or the Mets, I should say.
Yeah. So they may have Clifford may have a little runway before he needs to worry about that. So, but that gives us the opportunity to then make the choice. Do we want to go Cincinnati or Arizona? Both have their own reasons why they're intriguing.
Yeah, let's do Cincinnati and close on the Diamondbacks, because I like the conversation I think we'll be able to have with them as far as like where their major league rosters and what it's doing with these prospects.
So, Robbie, tell me who it looks like last year you had a pretty standard big three: Chase Burns, Rhett Lauder, and then I think there was a few guys that were a good option for that third guy in the Red system last year, but you had Sal Stewart. Good.
Yeah, worked
hard
out
to
well
argue
for
with
me.
That trio.
I
would say
looks good today.
Yeah.
So for 26, I'm repeating Louder because he is still there and everything worked out fine. I'm boringly repeating Sal Stewart. And that just has to do with the fact that he's technically still there. So these are auto picks. And don't worry, everybody. I've got good wedge players to talk about when we get there that are essentially big three type guys. And then I went with outfield prospect Hector Rodriguez as my third guy. Trade with the Mets in 22 is what brought him to town. And I'm going to go ahead and call him H-Rod moving forward. He took a break after a solid 25 where he had 283, 336 OPS, 19 home runs, 65 RBIs, 15 stolen bases, had a bunch of things. He went and played winter ball. Sorry, I said he did. What I meant to say was he didn't take a break after his solid 25. He went and played winter ball. Sorry, there we go. I've corrected any little mistake, so nobody can eat me out.
Bad pun from Joe.
Yeah,
I do know about that. Yeah,
and no, I don't have a Willow prospect, but maybe we'll get Arroyo to that. Okay, anybody? Anybody? Yes. So anyway, back to H-Rod here, who went to winter ball, new face in the crowded Cincinnati outfield. But the good news is that they tend to give players opportunities, and what they do with it determines how much and how long they stick on the MLB roster. He might be, based on what I looked at, the 8th guy on that depth chart. But there are no franchise players ahead of him, which means there'll be an opportunity. And whether that's in 26 or early in 27, I really think Hector Rodriguez is somebody worthy of keeping a very close eye on in Dynasty. Ideally, picking him up and stashing him if you're in that type of a league. But Rodriguez could be, I don't know, he could be what Will Benson has been some of the time.
Yeah.
Which
I will tell you one of the C. Trent Rosecrans. I don't know if
second
with the
class.
Reds.
See, this is why you buy tall boys, everybody, so you get 2 pints.
So C. Trent Rosecrans has been a long time Cincinnati Reds beat writer and works for the
he's
Athletic
awesome
now.
Yeah.
Tremendous. Very, very tremendous. He has said that coming into camp this year, everyone was raving about Hector Rodriguez, how he looked, that he had done some work physically, and that not only that, but he had spent a lot of time in the cage and he was picking up everything. Now, that said, he was sent down already, but in that outfield, there are a lot of guys who have 0 options, and he has options. And so that's kind of one of those things that happens at the start of a year. It'll be interesting to see how that goes throughout the year. If there was that kind of an impression made by Rodriguez, then there's potential that he could end up being a guy that we see a lot more of. So, and is that, I'm trying to think, is that 2 of your
that's
3?
My 3. No, that's my 3.
That's all 3. Okay.
Yeah, I've got Louder, Stewart, and Rodriguez. So Ben, last year you blessed us with Rhett Louder, Chase Burns, and Chase Petty. And other than Petty, you're good to go. So
yeah.
And I was very high on Petty 2 years ago. I was hopeful for him last year, but I have sadly seen he and Carlos Rodriguez of the Brewers come up and not be successful and then go back down and struggle. I would love for that. Yep. Yeah, I would love for them to be able to turn that around. I just haven't seen it yet. So who do you have as your big 3 in 2026?
So I join you on the Sal Stewart and Rhett Louder. Louder is a guy. Yep. Yeah. And Louder, kind of one of those guys, elite slider, and then he's got an average-ish fastball, but his control allows it to play up. Now, last year, I heard that he used both a circle change and a split change, and he wasn't 100% sold on either one of them after he came back healthy. What could be a very interesting thing is there are a number of pitchers who use multiple changeups. And if he wants to use a circle change and a split change and use them as separate pitches, that could just simply diversify his pitch mix. But with the Green injury, he should definitely be there on opening day, and he'll have the opportunity. And you kind of hope that he takes that opportunity and runs with it. Stewart is kind of he came up last year and made such an impression that he should be able to be pretty much penned into the lineup at this point, not penciled in.
Yeah, I think he's disrupted what was like the Spencer Steer thing. You know, I think he's like
Christian Encarnacion Strand. And
absolutely.
The group of there was like 6 of those guys that were first base, third base. And now they've somehow gotten Noelvi Marte to play center field, which is interesting. But when they were considering moving him to first last year, and now he's center field, interesting. But Stewart is a guy who is another one. This is a bad episode for me to have to eat crow, because Stewart is a guy, I actually did have him up a little bit last year. I liked him, but I was just worried, where is there ever going to be power here? He's one of those guys to me that looked like a whole lot of contact and not much else. And then he went to Double-A in the Southern League, which is one of the toughest places to hit for power, and showed a whole different power stroke. And you're like, oh, well, that's what you've been missing all along. And it took me until well into last year to trust that was real and not just a fluke. And so I probably was one of the last guys to buy in on the new Sal Stewart, and that probably cost me getting him in a lot of leagues, even though I liked the contact bat coming in last year. But he also, in that, took a step down the defensive spectrum, because he was a pretty sure third baseman last year, and now he's a first base DH type.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's unfortunate. My third guy on here is Alfredo Duno, which, make Joe happy because it fits his pun. The issue I have here, he's listed at 6'2", 210 pounds. I think 6'2" is close, probably more 6'3", 6'4" but 210 is a whole lot of trips to Domino's ago. He is certainly a 250-pound boy, if not more than that. And that makes it tough. When you're 6'3", 250, that makes it awfully tough to stick behind the plate. And he's shown that. His lateral movement behind the plate is really not great, but he has a good arm, and so they're willing to try it. But he is... Offensively, we've had this conversation already when we talked about Clifford. Kind of a 3 true outcomes sort of guy. He's going to strike out quite a bit. He's going to walk quite a bit. The average, I don't think, is going to be great, but there's going to be a lot of power with it. If he could catch, that's really a valuable profile, because there just isn't that much. Well, there's getting to be more, but there aren't that many guys who will give you 25 home runs at catcher. And so if you can get a guy who can do that on a consistent basis, even if it's with a 220 average, great, sign me up. But if he's not catching, there's a lot of guys that can give me 220 and 25 at first base.
Right.
And so that becomes a lot less valuable of a thing. The power is that level of power that he's in my big three. I mean, it's incredible power. And if he can do some work with his pitch recognition to where he's hitting 250 instead of 220, well, then we have a whole different discussion here. So that's my big three.
Okay. Do you want a breather, or would you like to dive right into your next three? Because last year, just to be a really good host, last year you had Cam Collier, Sal Stewart, and Tyson Lewis. So you did believe enough in Stewart to think there was something there.
Yeah, and that's also when I thought he was still a third baseman. So that was part
as you
of
said, defense was the lock there.
And this year I'm going to repeat one of those. One of those? Yeah, just one of them. And Tyson Lewis, who actually went a whole different direction than I thought he would. Tyson Lewis was a holy crap athlete that the Reds drafted, and considered, if not the best, one of the best athletes in that draft, that included guys like Connor Griffin. So pretty high praise to call Lewis an elite athlete out of that. Except that he's not showing that kind of athleticism. He suddenly became this guy who can hit the ball 115 mile an hour and hit it 480 feet. And you're like, whoa, wait a second here. But I mean, we should have figured this. This is a corn-fed boy from Nebraska. So, I mean, it's not surprising that grew up a Midwest boy.
Okay.
But he did maintain plus speed. I don't know. The instincts at short are not really there, but he's got a great arm. I think he would work very well at third. Has enough speed that he could work in center field, but could be a guy that moves into right field and is a really good right fielder too. So third or right, that's a pretty darn good. But this is going to be a guy who probably is an okay type of average with really good power and speed numbers for you in fantasy. But this is going to probably take a while. And that's the Reds have drafted a few of these guys lately. I'm going to bring up another one here in just a second, but probably Lewis is going to probably spend most of this year, if not all of this year, in high A. Okay. So, he's going to take time. Once he gets there, he'll get there. But, they have the ability to let these guys come because they have a depth of guys at the shortstop and second base and at those type of positions in their upper minors already that they kind of need to see what they have. But then last year they went out and took another elite athlete in Steele Hall. And I have no idea where Steele Hall is going to play. But he reclassified. So he was very young and everyone said, oh my gosh, this guy is like an 80 grade speed, but what else can he do? Well, he's 17. Like he could grow into a whole lot of other things at 17. He could still grow into a 25 home run hitter. We don't know that 100%, but he's already showed that he's a great athlete and he has some instincts already. They put him out in center. They thought really good things of him playing center and instructs. We'll see what he becomes. That's going to be a question, but another guy, they're going to likely move him slow, but this is a very, very, very high level talent. Last but not least, one of the guys that's probably going to allow for these guys to be moving slow, and you kind of hinted at his name already, Edwin Arroyo. Very solid defender. I'd probably say in the upper minors, this is the guy most likely to play shortstop. There's a lot of guys who play shortstop, but the most likely to play shortstop in the major leagues is probably Arroyo. And they got him in the Luis Castillo trade. He's been injured, still not 100% last year even, but the glove is great. He's going to get on the field because of the glove. Offensively, that profile is probably an Omar Infante, Placido Polanco type of guy where he gives you a little bit in all the categories, but you're probably always looking for somebody else. But he's going to play every day. So, I mean, if you get, let's say, 130 runs and RBI combined because he's playing every day and he gives you 10 home runs and 12 steals, that at least gives you more than nothing out of your second base or out of your shortstop / middle infield spot. So he won't be a zero. That's a very good thing, but probably not a guy that you should expect 25 home runs or 30 steals out of.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I've got him, and I'll discuss my notes on him now, but I've got him as a wedge player. And for Arroyo, he also did the winter ball thing, same as Rodriguez, because he needed at bats. After missing 24, he is potentially at the point where maybe he could come up in September if all things go well. But to your point, not getting extra base hits, power is an issue. Like with Ellie and Matt McLean, where does he go? What's logical? Is he a trade chip? Those are the things that make him a wedge player. As much as I love him as a prospect, you've got to, you pinned it. Perfect. There isn't a thing where you're like, well, this is what he'll do for you as a fantasy asset, other than potentially play every day, but not with the current Reds setup, with a different Red setup, and Matt McLain having an excellent spring is absolutely great for him. And being 2 years removed from being an excellent player in general, could quite quickly reestablish himself, which then means that middle infield is plugged. So Arroyo would have to have some good fortune come his way. So
Ellie is not the best defender. And there is I'm not saying that Ellie is their franchise player, period. You know, and so they're not going to move him off of short. They're not Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh moved O'Neal Cruz pretty quick and kind of pissed off O'Neal Cruz. Not saying it wasn't the right decision, just saying that it didn't go well as far as their relationship with their star player. And I don't think Cincinnati wants to do the same thing with Ellie.
Toronto let Bichette play mediocre to under average shortstop for 6 years. So, there's a lot at play within that seemingly simple decision to do that. So my next three, I'm overlapping with you on Steele Hall. Exceptional running and fielding. I think his 26 will be like extended spring training complex, like maybe low A. The big thing is going to see, or the big thing for us to see is what is going to happen with the bat, as you said about the power. Are we going to see that he's a spray ball hitter? Or are we going to see that he is really looking to smack the snot out of it? And if that's what he's looking to do and the results aren't there, I'm still in, because like you mentioned about the athleticism, if he's trying to make changes that are going to allow him to hit more home runs than what was initially projected at draft day, cool by me. I do have Alfred Duno here. He was the FSL MVP in 25. You talked about all the positives of him, and very, well articulated about the potential of him moving off catcher and his value declining rapidly. It's going to be a really important thing for him to consistently hit home runs as he moves up levels and have improved defense as he goes along. I have Cam Collier on here because I couldn't quit him. Power bat, health injuries delayed his portfolio building. Strong thing, synergy. We want to see Cam Collier really just have a year and figure out what he can be. And then I did sneak a fourth one on here because he was one of my guys from last year, which is Sheng-In Lin. And every time there's an Ohtani type, I'm in. And last year I had him in my next three, and I was talking about how well he was hitting. So this year I'm going to talk to you about how well he was pitching. 3.06 ERA, 0.94 whip, 61 Ks, 15 walks, and 47 innings pitched. Low 90s fastball, but it can get all the way up to 97. Looking at a 3-pitch mix, he did not bat well last year. Perhaps they will decide this year what he actually is, or they'll see if he wants to continue as he has been doing both. So I did sneak up, 4 guys in here: Collier, Lynn, Duno, and Hall. I spoke on my Arroyo bit as a wedge player. So that is my time. Ben, who do you have is a draft guy and a wedge player here?
So you actually talked about both of my wedge guys. So that I had mentioned. I had Lynn and Collier.
Oh, okay, cool. So what do you have for Lynn?
So Lynn, there's a shit ton of pitches here. This is a guy who probably nothing that right now sticks out as a plus pitch, but he showed 6 pitches that were all usable. But the big thing is he can control everything he throws. And as a guy who is a two-way guy, that's usually one of those things that takes a while to get. And instead he stepped in and immediately had control. It would surprise me if he gets out of A ball at all this year. I think he probably needs to work. He needs to find what it is can get him consistent outs. What pitch it is that he has that can get him a consistent out when he needs to get one. And then Collier, I had just a lot of, there's still at 21, and it seems like we've been talking about him forever. There's still a big gap between what he shows and what his potential is. And that's just what it is with Collier. But because you had that, I have 2 draftees, and I'm going to mention both of them since
Okay. Is one of
We're
them
doing-
the guy that Uncle Ted is screaming about in the chat?
which one is he screaming about? I was looking at the Venezuela game.
Mason Neville. That's the guy that I've got, their 4th round pick.
Yeah.
Power, great
He's actually
eye,
not.
2-time drafted player. Okay, great.
Yep.
So Reds drafted him twice. He's got a lot of power, a really good eye. Boom, that's my draft sleeper. Ben, go.
So my first one is a guy that if he was left-handed, Robbie would have some posters of him in his bedroom, and that is Aaron Watson.
Okay.
2nd round pick, and 6'5", 200 pounds with room to grow into that frame, but kind of a high 3/4, not completely over the top, but a high 3/4 guy who is a sinker slider. He has a good 4-seam that gets into the mid 90s, but he uses that sinker slider. But I put on here, there's a lot of development still needed, but this is a potential Logan Webb type of profile.
Fair.
So, and then the other guy I had on here is a guy that I'm surprised you don't have a poster of already, and that's Kyle McCoy, their left-handed pitcher.
Okay.
8th round, 6'6", 205 pounds, and went through Tommy John, was in his first year back in 25. And one of the things that impressed me when looking at him, he made it deep, or made it past the 5th inning in all but one of his starts, I believe, when I looked that up. So first year back from Tommy John, he was consistently getting deep into games. Kind of has a funky delivery. So I don't know what the long term is going to be. And, kind of with that length and a funky delivery, obviously there's concerns with command and control, because when you got a funky delivery and you're 6'6", you tend not to repeat it very well. And so there's not elite stuff here, but because of the deception from the delivery, because of the length, he gets a lot more strikeouts than you would think with a 90 to 93 mile an hour fastball. So just an interesting guy to watch, because they've developed some guys like this along the way. And so, if he can come up and add another tick or two of velocity, this could be another, Andrew Abbott sort of type of guy, but he needs to add that tick. But at 6'6", he's probably more likely going to be along the Brandon Williamson path. And then we're having discussions about, can he control the ball?
Right.
But just an interesting guy to pick up, or to look at.
Yeah. I had mentioned Arroyo as one of my Wedge players and stated the case. Blake Dunn is the other one. The notes on him are pretty simple. He's very good outfielder in AAA. He's within that 8-man mix I mentioned before. When he got his opportunity last year, he did not do well with it. He got sent back down. I don't know if he got a second call-up or not. I don't think he did. He might be getting the quad A label as a 27-year-old. But with only one little cup of coffee, I'd like to think there might be another opportunity for him. But regardless, he's kicking around some dynasty rosters as I don't know if, for me in one league, he's on my bubble. If I need to drop a guy, he might be the next guy to drop, but I would regret it because he was only drafted in 21. Mind you, it was 15th round, but he was drafted in 21 and he's been close after being up. So, Sam flying.
Sammy, he says that we look great even from a plane, which I'm not sure.
Don't know why that matters.
The high altitude may be doing something with his visual. I don't know. I'm just saying,
He's flying high. The other guy I've got is flying high, but is not in that mix with Lauder and Williamson as far as being the SP 5'6" type. And I think he's probably 7'8" though. So he's close. And that's Jose Franco.
Oh, yeah.
He is a 2018 J15 guy.
Yeah. He's been around a while.
Yeah, he was affected negatively by COVID. You can just go back and look at the line because he was in rookie ball in 19, did not get to do anything in 20, and then in 21 came back. So he's been building innings, and I think there must have been something that went on in 24 because he went from 77 innings in 23. Obviously, there was an injury, no time in 22. There was an injury, no time in 23. 24 came back 76 innings. And then made the jump last year up to 110. But in AAA, 17 games, 14 of them starts, held his own 3.51 ERA, 52 Ks in 51 innings. Every other level, he was well over a K per inning. But I don't know exactly what he is as a pitcher as far as where he's working in the zone and things like that.
Yeah.
But as a wedge guy within Cincinnati, he's there because he's not a highly sought after prospect who's coming up. He's just been a system guy, but I think he's about to get an opportunity to shine. And then my draft sleeper, as mentioned, was Mason Neville. So yes, Uncle Ted, Collier is a lefty.
Yes. I just want to make sure that we answered that.
Yeah.
Are we ready for a potential ad here, Robbie?
Sure. I did see that Uncle Ted
break?
talked about the Reds needing a lefty. So Tyson Lewis, Hector Rodriguez, Cam Collier is a potential one. Sheng-En Lin, who we talked about, is a potential. Adolfo Sanchez, who was a J2 guy 2 years ago, I think. He might be one. Carlos George, who is also a J2 guy. Julian Aguilar, who's in AAA. He's a 24-year-old. There's guys within the system. It doesn't mean that anyone is going to solve problems. 2 years ago, I loved Carlos Sanchez, who is now 21, at the time was 19. He's still within that prospect pedigree. There's guys. It's a matter of like impacting that lineup. I forget who it is that has 6. I think it might be Miami, who has like 6 potential lefties that they could put out every day, which would be crazy. So anyway, what do we got for an ad tonight, Ben? Let's throw it out.
Before we go into the ad, just want to let folks know who are following us live right now. Venezuela scored 3 runs in the top of the 7th and are now leading 4-2. So there we go. So we'll go to this one.
So let me repeat your order here. That'll be 1 double cheeseburger, ching. Large fries and a large soda, ching. 2 kids meals and 2 medium sodas, ching. 1 chicken sandwich, large fries, and a vanilla milkshake. Bada bing. That'll be $62.75. We're a little shy.
Remember when you could feed your whole family fast food for less than $10? Well, at Rally's, you still can. Rally's has it right.
Okay, Ben, question. Name the restaurant that Seth Green worked at, the fast food restaurant.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, it was all over him. It was Pricey's.
Okay.
That was the name of it. Where they
Which
nickel
is
and
hilarious.
dime you.
Yeah.
Where they will nickel and dime you.
So we go into our last system. And this is a weird system. Just in the fact that we're going to talk about a guy who technically graduated, but really hasn't established himself at all yet. That I think both of us had in our big 3 last year. Maybe he's actually going to get a chance this year. This is a team that, I don't know, they are just so much in the middle of not really knowing if they are going to go for they almost could use a year where they just say screw it and they reboot, but they never fully go there. And I thought this winter when they started talking trade with Ketel Marte, that might be their opportunity to do that, but they never did. And so now looking at this team in the division they're in, this is like an 83-win team. And I just don't see an upside for them to be a 95-win team. You know, I don't see what could break right for them to get to that level. And yet they're not willing to make the moves to be a 75-win team for a year and trade away pieces in order to let the young guys play so that 3 years from now, they're a 90-win team. And it bugs me watching them because there's opportunities that should be here that aren't here.
Yeah. They're also major league locked in at the same time. They're not within that middle or that infield. Like they've got Carlos Santana and Nolan Arenado at the corners. And then Marte and Perdomo in the middle infield, right? Is that how it's sitting up? Or is Marte outfield? Do I have that right?
No, Marte is second base.
Marte, yes, thank you. Okay, Marte's second base. and Perdomo shortstop. They've got catcher locked. It's a matter of who gets it. I'm still an Adrian Del Castillo.
Moreno has gotten hurt now, so
yes, I'm still a believer in Del Castillo getting time, getting results, but we haven't had the time yet. So he was on my big three last year, which I'll just start in. Last year I had Jordan Lawler, I had Adrian Del Castillo, and I had Drew Jones. And I stated on here, Jones is a slow burn, but he's coming around. Elite outfielder, healthy season, should be in a position to start AA. So that was last year. This year, one of my next three, Ryan Welchman, promoted to the big three. Looks legit. They're talking that he's on the cusp, but is he really on the cusp with the Diamondbacks? Not as they are right now. I don't think. Lawler looks to have moved from shortstop to the outfield. Okay. Sure. Tommy Troy, I've got, who was the first round pick in 23. He really started to make the change in the AFL in 2024. Now he looks legit. Issue is that they're locked in the middle infield, as I just said, with Perdomo. They put him in for 4 years. That leaves a potential 15 home run, 25 stolen base hitter without a starting job. As you mentioned, Ben, were they going to make a move and free things up? Nope. Is there an opportunity for them to do it this year? Certainly. If not, what are they going to do? Let Tommy Troy kick around AAA this year and find a way to get him up? I don't think you want to make him a bench bat. I don't know. The other guy I've got is their first round pick from last year, Kason Cunningham, 19-year-old. The potential issue is going to be lack of power and the projection, but to slam in the face of that based on his size, you've got Altuve, you've got teammate or potential future teammate, and Corbin Carroll comps that could change our minds. I think he could be the next guy that we're all excited about in Arizona, but it's almost depressing talking about them because I don't know how these guys are getting into the lineup because they brought in players, one via trade in Arenado, one free agent sign in Santana, to do what? Win 82 games so you have an above 500 team, or to trade for assets, which you, in theory, everybody always needs something, but you don't actually need because you've got guys that you could promote. So I don't know. Do they bring Arenado in to get international money via trade this year?
And the thing that bugs me, you brought up Del Castillo, and I believe in him as a hitter.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's still some more catching wise for him to
Certainly,
do, but I believe in him as a hitter. But they also then signed James McCann to a not insignificant contract. So if that's your backup catcher, well, then Del Castillo is wasting, or not wasting away, but is spending a year in AAA. And quite frankly, Arizona's AA and AAA minor leagues parks are two of the most hitter-friendly parks in the minors. You're going to screw with your pitchers' heads, and you're going to overinflate your hitters' egos before they get to the majors. And we have seen a lot of Diamondbacks who fall on their face in the majors. It's almost better for them to start the year in the majors, getting nothing but major league time, than to transition midseason from that AAA, AA ballpark. Because it is such a difference to them to actually face a real ballpark that they have to try and hit a ball out of. So, Davis and De Los Santos, anybody.
Yes,
but, yeah. I mean, but so that's your big three that you.
Yeah, Waldschmidt, Troy, Cunningham.
Okay. Last year I had Lawler, I had Yilber Diaz, and I had Drew Jones. And I think you could have picked I think Lawler and Jones were kind of a pretty easy 2 out of 3. And then it was just there was a number of guys you could get for your third there. And yeah, that Yilber, since Joe brought this up.
We can definitely talk about how Arizona can't develop pitching prospects.
My gosh. Because Ryan Nelson was supposed to be a mid-rotation guy, and now they're talking about him as a closer. And it's just, oh my God, like so many. And
I've got two in my next, though.
Okay.
My next two in my sleepers. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Two in my sleepers.
What I will say, they just had possibly the best draft or the best trade that they could possibly have made for Merrill Kelly. That might turn out to be an incredible steal for them, because they let the Rangers draft and develop 3 guys and then traded for them. So maybe they don't have to develop those guys. So my big 3 this year, Waldschmidt, I said I have on here nothing is plus, but everything's above average. One of those guys that does everything well, nothing elite. But he's only been up to AA for a number of games. As much as I don't like that they're not going to give him a shot, I think that it's actually smart that they not give him a shot. Let him get at least half a season in. The reason he's getting that chance is because they had signed another crusty old veteran in Lourdes Gurriel, who ended up getting hurt and was going to be out all year. Otherwise, they wouldn't even be having this conversation. But
they didn't sign him. They trade. That was part of the Moreno trade.
That was right. They traded for him.
It's just that he's still kicking around on that contract.
Yeah.
I think it was a 6-year deal, if I'm not mistaken, and this is year 6 of it.
So
good times.
Then I have Cunningham on here. There's a ton of comparisons to Kevin McGonigal.
Oh, wow.
Detroit, his profile makes sense that you would get that comparison. It sounds really weird to say this, but I would trust Detroit's development a hell of a lot more than I would trust Arizona's on a hitter to turn him into that guy.
Yeah, for sure.
And especially to me, because I think the comparisons with McGonigal and Cunningham right now are very similar in where they're at defensively. And both coming out of the draft had a lot of questions about shortstop defensively. McGonigal has come around and shown that, you know what, I can handle short, but I'm working my butt off at whatever defensive position you put me at. And I'm going to be so good you can't not play me somewhere. I'm going to be a really good second baseman. I'm going to be a really good third baseman. I'm going to be a passable shortstop, whatever. I'm going to work so hard that I am at least major league capable at any of those positions. That's on him, but that also is an encouragement that he's got within his system. Who's going to push Cunningham to do that? As we've seen with guys like Troy, as we've seen with guys like Lawler, who's pushing them to really excel like that? And that's, Anyway, so then my other guy, Arizona likes to take these kind of undersized, up the middle sort of guys, and the other one that they grabbed last year was a guy that I liked in Slade Caldwell. And quick short, I have down here as a quick short swing, gives him plus contact. He's got gap power right now, but if he picked his pitches a little better, that he makes a ton of contact, and if he's picking which ones to make contact to, he could get a little more over fence pop, and probably a really good center field, left field option defensively, which for all the struggles they've had offensively, they've had some pretty solid defenders in the outfield. That at least they can produce. But other than that, that's about the one positive you can say about Arizona's outfield in the last number of years is, Jake McCarthy, Alec Thomas, all those guys, pretty solid defenders. If you're putting Lawler in center field, I trust them that he's going to be a solid defensive center fielder if they're willing to put him in center over a guy like Alec Thomas, who was it 2 years ago was a Gold Glove finalist or nominee or whatever. So you're talking solid. That I can at least respect and understand. But a guy like Caldwell, again, like you mentioned, has the tools. If he develops them, who's the next Lourdes Gurriel that gets signed or traded for that then plugs up the outfield so he doesn't get a shot?
Right.
So,
and they seem to continue to find guys knowing they plug their corner infields. And I guess in their defense, they felt like they had somewhere for Lawler to go that was not a corner. Well, would have been third base, but that was not third base. They, the better spot for him. And Arenado out of St. Louis was something that St. Louis wanted, and Arizona getting this guy to come in. You don't get Arenado to sell jerseys. We're not at that stage of the career here.
Yeah.
The better deal for Arenado would have maybe somehow to go back to Colorado, but I think that's all too murky, and he was quite upset when he left and all that stuff. So I don't think that's a possibility. So he ends up in Arizona, and now he's either got to perform or we're going to complain that he blocked guys this year. So that's the big three. Super depressing. Not in the fact that the players are depressing, of course, but the organization's building and how it seems to have been blocked based on what they've done. So we're going to look to the future. Although the big three are still the immediate future, let's look into the distant future, Ben. Last year, you had the highly touted Demetrio Crisantis, you had Slade Caldwell, and you had Waldschmidt, who you mentioned. Who do you have for 2026?
So I'm bringing back Crisantis. Injury stuff last year that kind of didn't he had a big year in 24.
Put a pause on him. That's all it did.
Yep. And the big thing to me is what he has shown so far has all been at the A-ball level. Granted, he's got a really nice park to work with in the upper minors, but you still have to be able to beat upper minors pitching. And he's not an over fence sort of guy. So if he ends up getting kind of pulled into trying to shoot for the fences in that park, that could really mess up his swing, which I think it's not like Luis Arias type of empty average, but it's a whole lot better when he's shooting for the gaps and going for a batting average than it is if he's going to try and yank the ball. Then I do have a pitcher on here, David Hageman. Who was a reliever in college, and then the Rangers drafted him in the 4th round, kind of made him a starter, and has the type of stuff that could be a really good starter. 3+ pitches, plus control, you could say. Just needs to build up stamina. I was looking, and I think it was like 70 pitches is what he topped out at last year.
Wow. Okay. So I didn't realize it was that low.
But he was efficient. That's the thing, is he has such good control that a lot of times he was getting through 6 innings on 70 pitches. And it's like, whoa, well, if that's what you're going to do. I'd say likely he spends all year this year building length and doesn't get into the major league rotation. But if I'm looking at that minor league pitching depth, this is probably the guy that I would suspect gets the first call. But like I said, he's probably a 5 and dive type of guy right now because he just hasn't built up to being a 6 inning guy. So got to wait on him if you're expecting any length. And then last I have Tommy Troy. We've talked about him a little bit, but took a big step forward this last year. Really played solid ball and really looked natural at second base, which is what led me to go, oh, they got somebody fill in if they trade Marte, because all they need to do is just bring in Tommy Troy, let him take his lumps. Between him and Lawler, somebody's getting their lumps at second base, and they're going to find out who's the guy for the future. Yeah, and then they kept Marte, and we'll see, because I just, at least with the bat, with the ability to handle second, I'll trust that, Troy has reestablished himself as a prospect, but he's also on a team that doesn't really do well at transitioning prospects once they get to the level he's at.
There you go. Yeah, that is the struggle. So he'll start in AAA, and we will see if there's an opportunity for him to come up, and if Arizona brings him up, which is not a given.
No.
Yeah, I want to like him more. I can't because of where he is, and I hate when we get into organizations that are like that. So, yeah. All right. So those are your next 3. Sum them up for the folks again. One more time.
So I had Demetrio Crisantis, David Hageman, and Tommy Troy.
All right. And I have put Troy in my big. Crisantes is in my next. Last year in my next, I had Ryan Walshman, I had Tim Tawa, and I had Jacob Steinmetz. This year, as mentioned, I've got Dimitro Crisantes, who, returning. This is my note for everybody out there. Returning from shoulder surgery, he might lack some pop, but is he the future third baseman in Arizona? I don't know. Let's see what he can do. He was a 7th round pick in 22. He has exceeded some of those early expectations of him. Another guy they've got, JD Dix. He was their 1st round pick in 24. He's 6'2", violent swing lefty. He needs to sort out some loft. Again, all these guys, right? Power. Lacking over the pop power. He needs some more OPS. And he's on the cusp of major importance, but he's not quite there for everybody just yet. And I have Mason Marriott. That is my pitcher that I've got here. 20-year-old high A guy. He was a 6th round pick in 24. He's 6 foot, about 200 pounds, and he's not playing this year. You're welcome, everybody. Can't even watch list him and get results, but you can watch list him and then come back in the offseason. And ideally, if he's not on anyone's dynasty roster, he's not getting picked up when he's not pitching. But in his brief time in 25, he had 19 innings at high A, which is Hillsboro Hops, I believe, 25 strikeouts. And hey, Mason, we'll see you in 2027, baby. And in the meantime, he's on my list of like guys to draft late in some of those dynasty leagues next year. And I don't think, maybe we'll see him AFL. I don't know. He's 20 years old. There's certainly no rush. So I don't know that that's realistic, but there was potential when he first debuted in 25. So I would like to see some more from him. So Ben, we can move on here and start the wrap up process. Who do you have for Arizona as far as some names in the draft to note and some Wedge guys?
So we'll start with Wedge, and because we brought him up, both of us, Drew Jones, we all know the background hype. Still is an elite defender, still has the speed, has never really brought the power that he showed in high school to the pro game, but it looks like he tapped into some of that in winter ball. And that is something to watch this year because he had a really strong winter ball performance and he made some very obvious swing changes. And so if he brings those forward into the year, maybe we're talking about Drew Jones in a whole different way next year. One of the arms I'm going to bring up, another one from that trade, Cole Drake.
Yeah.
Another 6'5", 220
like
lefty,
yeah.
you know, but he's had injuries. He's worked on his delivery, so he's now pretty consistently in that like 92 to 95 bubble, touching 97 when he really reaches back. That's a workable speed to be as a lefty, and doesn't really have an elite off speed. That's the thing, or off speed or breaking ball. And he needs to get one of those to kind of become an out pitch for him. And that's going to be the next step for him to being a full-time starter. The draft guy that I really like, and we'll see what he becomes, Luke Dotson. They picked in the 11th round.
Yeah.
Like
6'4", 195.
I watched him in college, and he is a guy who would close a game for Mississippi State, and it almost always was a 4-hitter close. I don't know that I ever watched him just get 3 outs, but he didn't pitch that many more innings than appearances. So apparently, I watched all of his multi-inning ones when I watched him, but he would show 5 and maybe even 6 looks if you really wanted to say that so, but for sure 5 pitches as a closer. And from everything I've read, Arizona plans to develop him as a starter, which,
of course,
Arizona plans to develop anything with a pitcher after that should always be thrown into, think about what you're saying. But gosh, there's just enough there to really like what this could be. If this was if this was a guy the Dodgers drafted, I would be all over him, because that they're going to find a way to develop this. If this was a guy that an organization like the Marlins, who've developed pitchers like this, a really good example, the Mets, we talked about them tonight. They have done really well taking big time college relievers and turning them into major league starters. But that's, the other guy I put on here just because he's, Patrick Forbes.
Okay.
Holy shit stuff. But he needs to absolutely become a pitcher. And I just don't think that this is the organization that is going to turn Patrick Forbes into a pitcher. He is a thrower and likely will become a really good bullpen thrower down the road.
Okay. Yeah, on Dotson, the notes I have are, and I'm not quite sure because I don't think I've done this for any other college pitcher. I have the number of batters he's faced the last 2 years, which is 157. And he's given up 3 home runs to 157 batters. To your point, 18 appearances, strikeout to walk ratio of nearly 3-1, and only the 3 home runs. And he gave those up last year. The previous year, he gave up none. And he had 98 last year, 3 home runs given, 98 batters faced, 59 the year before, none. Again, I don't know why I wrote it this way, but I did, and a 3.09 ERA for him. But I love it because as a reliever, this is the exact thing that a team drafts are like, this is underdeveloped talent at the college level. We're going to max it out. And then you're like, oh, wait, it's Arizona. Is there a way they can buck this? I don't know. But again, I'm going to see what they do with them in the first half of the season and start to make, choices as to whether he gets onto my draft boards for next offseason, because I don't think he got picked up anywhere in my leagues, simply, I'm sure, because of the Arizona connection. The other sleeper that I've got here is their 3rd round pick, Brian Curley. Not fastball that sits comfortably mid-90s, gets up to 100. He's got a breaking ball. He's a spin rate guy, mid-80s slider. So that's tough to deal with right there, when you can get up to 100 and then throw a slider in the 80s, and you got movement on pitches. And he also was able to do a decent job of controlling walks in college. So potential here, but as a 3rd round pick, depending on the depth of your leagues, he may very well have been drafted. There was a Turley, and I think 2 Curleys that were batters. He's one of the 2 Curleys that were batters. I'm thinking Cleveland and the Athletics, I think, may have had those guys. So I might be confusing the Curleys and the Turleys of the world, but I've definitely seen the name been drafted. Now, my wedge players, I've got Caldwell, who you talked about lacking the pop, K-Risk. It's I don't know. We don't know where he's going to go and what they're going to do with him as far as how Arizona runs things. The other guy I have is Lou James Grover. Hitter Arizona has Crisantos, and maybe that's the future, and Arenado is the present. I don't know what that's going to necessarily mean for him. Would love to see that he could break through this year, but I don't know. That's one of my frustrations with Arizona. They might be one of my most frustrating organizations because there's talent and it's not moving around how I want it to. And that dates back to last year with Del Castillo, who I understood needed at bats, not necessarily to be a catcher, but he needed at bats because he was able to produce, and then he didn't get them last year. And now I'm terrified that he could be the next Luis Campusano. And I don't want that to happen because I did put a tag on him as a top 10 dynasty catcher. So I'd really like that to work out a little better for me. But anyway, that's 27 teams with 1 week to go. Yeah. And I will miss next week. However, I've already done my homework and I'll be passing it along to maybe Sam. And if he chooses to expose himself to you, wait. If he tells you what the names are or tells the people what the names are, they can be discussed. And I look forward to listening to next week's show as you do, the listener.
Great job.
It's fun. Yeah, it's fun. And then that'll wrap it up for the big three next three.
Yeah, and then we can start actually. I'm thinking, we'll talk more off air, but I think probably be a good idea that first week maybe to just kind of go and talk about prospects that made the major league rosters.
Definitely, yeah,
because that's for a lot of folks. There's a lot of times a sneaky reliever that you don't know about that made the roster and ends up by the end of the year, that guy's moved into a setup role and he's helping you out in Solds leagues. Or there's a guy who is there as the long reliever, and lo and behold, he becomes a guy who makes 15 starts that year and can really help you out. Now, if that was your Joey Wentz last year, sorry about that luck, because I just saw that he ripped his ACL and he is out this year, which really stinks because that's a guy who's been trying to find a niche all these years and finally finds one last year, and then no more. So
yeah.
And that ends Brave Talk for tonight.
Yeah, there we go. Strike 1, 2, and 3. But I congratulate. Like, that's 100 minutes in. That's the longest you've gone, Ben. So that's something to be good or to feel proud about. Anyway, okay, so we'll wrap her up for tonight, and then next week we're coming back, although it won't be me. It is Kansas City, which I'm so glad to be missing them, the Yankees and the Giants. And I am really
Kansas City because
get into.
You really don't want to talk about all the catchers. Is
oh my God.
Issue?
I got three.
It's all the catchers.
3 catchers.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And it's frustrating. And like one left-handed pitcher. That's it. There are 3 catchers and a lefty. So
yeah.
Anyway,
Joe's giving you crap in the comments right now.
Oh, is he? Yeah.
I'll let you go back and forth with Joe later. But
sure.
So, well, on that note, we will be back next week. Like you said, Kansas City, and we're going to be talking about the Wait, no, that's not right. It's not the Yankees.
Yankees, Giants, KC. No. Isn't that what we got next week?
No, because we've done the Yankees already.
Uh-oh, who are we missing?
Rangers.
Same thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we would have done the Rangers real early, we would be talking a whole lot different about their top prospect. Let's just put
whatever it is on my spreadsheet, I've got it done. I was just looking at the show notes here. So, okay.
Yeah.
I'll fix that. So it's Texas, KC, and the Giants next week.
Yeah,
that's good because I'm glad I must have trashed the Yankees. I sure hope I did. I guess we would have because we would have talked Dax Kilby weeks and weeks ago, which you're all welcome to go back and listen to. So, and
that's just it. So, all right, folks. For Robbie, on my way out, I will let you know. Hey, please subscribe. We're looking to get to 2,000 subscribers on here, and we really would like to do that early in the season if possible. But also check us out on Discord. A lot of great talk going on the Palazzo Discord, and follow us on all of the social media places. I think you can find Robbie on Truth Social, and find me on various different things but
Canadian Truth
Social. There we go. For Robbie and for all of us here at Palazzo, we'll wish you good evening.
Absolutely.
Carlos Delgado.
Excellent choice. Too bad I got him 3 rounds ago.
You're still on the clock.
Oh, shit!
You gotta do something.
We need a name. Hideki Matsui. You just took my whole outfield.
Sorry, Charlie.
What is this?
Debbie.
What the fuck is this?
It's our fantasy baseball draft. We said no wives.
Your fantasy what?
It's our draft. For fantasy baseball. I told you all about this. Got Matsui.